Today, we're going to dig into something pretty fascinating, a way of understanding how democracies get tested. And it's not with a big, obvious show of force, but with something way more subtle. We're going to break down a playbook based on the work of Brian Sankersing that's designed to push and prod the very norms that hold a society together.
You know, when we hear the phrase, raising the bar, we always think it's a good thing, right? It means we're aiming for excellence, better ideas, better government, you name it. But here's the twist the source material points out. The bar can also be raised in the complete opposite direction. Instead of excellence, you can get brazenness, a deliberate push to see just how much you can get away with, almost daring people to try and stop you. And that tension, that's what we're going to explore.
So how does something like this even happen? Well, modern authoritarianism hardly ever shows up with a big, loud, dramatic takeover. Nope. Instead, it starts with what's called a stress test. It's a much quieter, kind of sneaky process. It's not a battering ram knocking down the door. It's more like someone just tapping on the glass, just checking for cracks.
And this test is really just a series of little probes, all designed to find the weak spots in the system. What are people willing to put up with? How much will our independent institutions let slide? It's this constant pushing of boundaries to see just how far our democratic norms can bend before they finally snap.
And this right here, this quote absolutely nails the end goal. It's not just about winning an election or getting a bill passed. The real prize is to fundamentally change the rules of the game itself. See, every single time a norm is broken and there's no consequence, a new lower standard is set. Impunity basically becomes the new political currency, and that just paves the way for even bigger violations later on.
So how does this stress test evolve from just tapping on the glass into a full-blown strategy? Well, Sankersing lays out 5 specific tactics, or plays, in what's called the brazenness playbook. These are the core moves for systematically taking apart democratic norms. The first play is probably the most shocking one. Open brazenness. This isn't about hiding what you're doing. It's the exact opposite. It's about doing it right out in the open, because you're confident that nothing bad is going to happen to you.
And here's how it works, step by step. First, you do the thing, publicly. Then you just flat out deny you did it, even when everyone saw you. You dismiss anyone who's upset, mocking their outrage as some kind of weakness. Then, guess what? You do it again, but this time you go for something even bigger. What you're teaching everyone is that accountability is basically optional, and the law can become just another tool, something you use to protect your friends and punish your enemies.
Okay, the second play is called exhaustion. If just being bold and defiant doesn't quite work, you can always try to just wear everybody down. This whole tactic is about overwhelming the public until they just can't be outraged anymore.
This quote perfectly captures the psychology behind it. The idea is to flood the zone with so many scandals, so many controversies and lies, that people literally can't keep up. The sheer volume of it all just creates this paralyzing fatigue. And the result is this really dangerous slide. First, people get tired of being angry. That fatigue starts to nudge them towards cynicism. The whole, they're all corrupt anyway, so who cares idea. And that indifference eventually just hardens into pure apathy. And that is the perfect environment for democratic norms to quietly die off.
Play number 3 is language shift. This is all about changing the words we use to talk about politics, because if you can control the language, you can control what people think is normal or acceptable.
So, it starts by reframing your political opponents. They're not just rivals anymore, they're enemies or traitors. Simple disagreement gets described using the language of war. And once you've set that stage, well, extreme actions don't seem so extreme anymore. They just become necessary measures for security and order.
All right, play number 4 is legalism, and this one is really clever. It's all about using the actual mechanisms of the law to undermine the rule of law itself. For instance, maybe you follow the technical procedures to stack a court with loyalists, or you use a legal loophole to cripple an agency that's supposed to hold you accountable. You're following the letter of the law, sure, but you're doing it in a way that just completely destroys its original purpose.
And the final play, moral inversion, really ties all the others together. This is where core democratic values get totally flipped on their head. All of a sudden, things like following the rules or acting with integrity, that's portrayed as weak. And what's celebrated instead? Unconditional loyalty to one person and a willingness to break the rules. That's seen as being tough and strong. Basically, principle gets tossed out the window in favor of pure tribalism.
Okay, so that's the playbook for taking a democracy apart. And I know, it can sound pretty bleak, but the source material doesn't just stop at diagnosing the problem. It also offers a solution. The big question is, what can actually be done about it?
And that brings us to the counter playbook. These are the things that we, as citizens, can do to strengthen the very norms that are being stress-tested. It's all about actively defending that democratic space.
So the counter playbook has 4 really important steps. First, name things plainly. Don't use soft language. Call out these plays when you see them for what they are. Second, judge leaders by how they respect the process, not just by what they promise to deliver. Third, actively support the institutions that act as our guardrails, a free press, an independent judiciary. And finally, and this one's huge, learn to value boring governance, the steady day-to-day work of democracy, over the exciting spectacle of a dominant personality.
And that really brings us to the core lesson of this entire analysis. Holding the line isn't about some single heroic moment. It's about a collective, ongoing commitment to stand up for these basic principles.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The ultimate power in a democracy isn't with any one leader, no matter how powerful they seem. It's in the public's collective refusal to let anyone, no matter who they are, bend the rules. And this is why it matters to every single one of us. Democracy is not a spectator sport. The standards we are willing to accept from our leaders are the standards we get. If we lower our expectations, we get chaos. If we demand better, well, we get better. It's that simple.
So we end right back where we started. That door is always moving. The question this whole framework leaves us with is a really simple but really profound one. As citizens, which way are we, all of us together, lifting it? Towards excellence or towards brazenness? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.